Sunlight spills through the cafe door. Mic goes live like it's done before. 9 years deep in these mountain towns, we brew the truth, not just sit around. I came for a visit and stayed for the view, but the soul of this place, it just pulls you through. Mornings in Finlandia, nights in Salento. Life don't move fast, but man, it's full tempo. This ain't a pitch, it's real as it gets. From lost bags to love and bureaucratic regrets. No script here, just the sound of real lives told live every week under Colombian skies. It's coffee time lived from the heart of Quindío, where the screen fades out and the real stories flow from expats who landed and locals who guide. We laugh, we vent, we cry, we ride. It's not about views, it's about the vibe. Just raw conversation, live and alive. Got folks tuning in from every time zone, asking what's it like to make this place your own. It's mango trees, it's rent debates, it's finding peace past the clickbait gates. Some days we talk visas, some days we just breathe and sip dark roast while the valley grieves through mudslides, marches, markets, and mess. We show up with stories, no more, no less. It's coffee time lived, not just a name on a screen. It's 9 years of mornings and everything between. No hype, just heart and a decent brew. A place for the honest, the warm, the true. Not selling dreams, just sharing the ride from right here in Quindío live. And if you've ever felt a little lost or wide awake at dawn, this show was made for you to lean on. We're not tourists here, we belong, we build in mountain towns where the air stands still. So bring your mug, your doubts, your days. We'll light 'em up in soft cafe rays. It's not a podcast, it's a porch-like glow. It's home and a headline, a yes and a no. It's coffee time live. Come as you are from my table in Colombia to wherever you are.
Good morning and welcome back to the channel grancolombia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live here in Colombia, in Armenia, Quindío, Colombia. Let's talk more about my horrible beard. We must go, I think we're going on 8 or 9 weeks and I still can't grow it. I just don't get it. Okay, today's a nice cool day. It's overcast, probably going to get a high of 76, pretty awesome. I got out and around a little this week. I'm going to talk about it. I was forced to go out, and it sort of worked out pretty good. Almost passed out once, but I went out, made it back. So that was pretty cool, that part of it. Um, I'm going to tell you the story about what happened to me this week because I found out that this is something that wasn't unique to me. Now, it's not common, but it happens too much. It happens too much. Now, as you probably know, I get direct deposit. And I have it done through Colombia. Now, prior to me doing business and other things that required that I do some banking here in Colombia, I I had everything go into Capital One, and I used my ATM card to pull the money out. And that worked great. But then I had to do the direct deposit. And I have to admit that the direct deposit in Colombia was really useful. It was really handy. And I've been on that for about 3 years now. I mean, I went 6 years doing the ATM route, and that was pretty good. It was awesome. But the Colombia thing, it was just more convenient, particularly over this past year as I've been, you know, apartment ridden for quite a while. I was able to do everything through that account. So I didn't have to go out and get cash and then disseminate cash. I could just do everything right through there. So it was kind of a lifesaver. But here's the thing. June 3rd comes around, and that's when I'm supposed to get my Social Security direct deposit. And for 3 years, it's been clockwork. It's never been late. Now, I will say that when it was going into Capital One, I could look at it at 4 o'clock in the morning and it would already be there. And here in Colombia with Colombia, they don't post it until 9 a.m. And one time it was 10 a.m. No idea why. But it's always been there. It's always been there right away in the morning, office hours. Well, this June 3rd, nothing showed up. So I go, well, maybe it's a little late. So I wait until that afternoon. It's still not here. What's going on? So I go into my Social Security account and I take a look, and it says it was paid out. I said, okay, well, it's paid out. Then I'll wait until the morning because there's only a couple hours left. I'll wait till the morning. So June 4th comes around. It's not there. And I wait till about 11 o'clock. Still not there. I said, well, it doesn't look like it's getting posted again. So I need to start digging for this. And so I call Social Security. I get put on hold forever. I'm not going to go through all the detail. I just quickly itemize. I called the Colombia. I used Colombia's WhatsApp. They directed me to a different WhatsApp. I got caught up in an AI loop with Colombia. It was very frustrating. I emailed Colombia. I got responses back, but the directions they're giving me, they just kept repeating the directions, and it wasn't working. I did little things in my Colombia account. Nothing was working. So the only alternative was Friday. After I'd done all that stuff through the week, Friday was, I got to go out and brave me going out. Now, I said I wasn't going to talk about my health stuff, and I really don't want to. But there's been reasons why I've been kind of landlocked in the apartment, because bad things can happen, and there's several things, and I don't want those things to happen. I live alone. It's not good to go out on my own. And so I'm waiting with this new medicine to get to the point where I can start doing that again. I'm getting closer, but I had no choice, because you see, my rent after Friday became overdue. Now, it's not to complain. This is just tell you the story. As you know, the peso has been kind of sucky. And so, I've lost a fair amount of money out of my income for that. I lost the monetization from Rumble. It just got reinstated. So all the live chats you can give me, I appreciate it. One person per month, but I appreciate it. That's how I lost it last time. I fell short. So it's been kind of tough, because I've lost, several sources of income. And so if I don't pay my rent on time, you have to pay a penalty. I don't really have that. And so it's like, oh crap. And then I've got some other bills that are outstanding and some incur penalties. So it's like, oh, this is like the worst of all things. So I got to go out. So I shower up, I get dressed, and I go out, get a taxi. I go down to the bank. All right, I'm down to the bank. I register. When I go in to the bank to, work up my direct deposit thing, they sent me to one place. They couldn't do anything. They sent me to another office, all in the same branch. And finally, I'm sitting there with a woman who's got the flu, and she keeps coughing and sneezing. And I'm supposed to be very careful about not getting that. But what the hell? And so she's digging and digging and digging. And finally, she says, but you're dead. Now, the first thing I thought was Social Security, you have to register, but I did that. I haven't had any problems. Plus, I saw where Social Security did the payout. So this is what's running through my head. And I said, well, obviously I'm not dead. So she turned her screen to me. It's all in Spanish. She's speaking in Spanish. And I'm reading this thing, and it says that I'm dead. So well, I'm not. What am I supposed to do? So she did some digging. I have to go Monday because I was only an hour away from, well, I was about 30 minutes away from that office closing. And the taxi would have taken about 15 minutes to get there. There wouldn't have been time to do anything. So she said, Monday, they open at 9:00. You need to go there. It's the registration, the civil registration, federal or national civil registration or whatever. And it's down in El Centro. So I go there and I have to take my cedula, which may have been canceled and I just don't know about it, but I have to take my cedula and I have to take my passport and I have to take anything that shows I've been active, which is tough because I actually haven't been active. And so I have to take that all down. They'll take my fingerprints. Fortunately, they use the digital system so that they get almost in, well, I won't say instantaneous, but maybe I have to wait 15, 20 minutes to get a response back from Bogota to verify that those are my fingerprints. And with that, they can give me a temporary certificate pronouncing that I'm not dead. And they put it in the system, and it takes 3 or 4 days for it to actually pop up in the system. Now, what's that got to do with Bank of Colombia? Well, Bank of Colombia monitors throughout the day by computer this registry along with other things. And apparently there's a law that says if for some reason I pop up in the registry as dead, they have to block my account. And that's exactly what happened. Now, I can go back with my temporary certificate. They may require that I wait the 3 days before it's in the system, or I may get lucky where they can do a manual override. Now, part of that will depend on who's in this branch at the time and do they have the power to do the manual override, because they're not always in the bank, because they're higher up and maybe they're off that day, or maybe they're in a different branch doing so. Who knows? But if I get very lucky, they'll be able to do a manual entry and I will receive my money Monday. And right now, I think the only one that I have to pay the overdue fees is for the rent. I'm not even positive of that, but I think that's the case. If I have to wait till basically the end of the week for it to show up, then that's when they'll move the deposit. But here's the danger. I could see it was visible, although not in my account. I could see it as pending to go into my account. It was just blocked. So I could see the funds from the US in dollars. And I got a screenshot of that. However, I don't know how long it takes before it gets returned. Now, if it gets returned to the United States, reason being I'm dead, I won't be able to get all of this rolling again for possibly another month or so, because they will automatically stop that account. And then I'll have to go through to reopen it. So the longer it takes, the more likely it'll get returned. So this could be quite the disaster. So it's very exciting. It's always nice to live on the edge. The nice part was, as I mentioned earlier, I only began to pass out one time. Outside of that, everything actually went pretty well with me out and about. So that's the upside. You always got to look at the bright side of things. So I tell you that story because it can happen, and it can be very inconvenient, and it's something that you should know about. And I never got any kind of notice about how I was dead. Now, I went to actually 4 different AIs, plugged the question into all 4 at the same time, Grok and Gemini and Claude and GPT. And I said, here's the situation. How can this happen? They all had the same answer. Number one, it could be a clerical error where something comes in as like a notification of death, and they make a typo in the entry, and that typo is me. So maybe they put in a cedula number and transposed numbers or whatever and accidentally put my number in. So that's the first place it could be. The second place would be, and this is based on how often these things happen. The second most common is if you had any time in a hospital, medical labs, things like that, and if they made an entry error. So if somehow they just clicked the wrong box or whatever, and instead of saying I'm whatever, that I'm dead, then that could do it. Doesn't matter. It's done. I can probably get it reversed Monday. So that's the good news. How long it'll take the bank and whether that money gets sent back to the US and creates a whole new problem, I don't know. Like I say, got to hope for the best. So if it ever happens to you, and it could happen, that's the thing. Oh, and I may have to go renew my cedula too. I don't know. I don't know, because they don't notify you. You find out like this. Okay. So let's talk about some other news items. Let's see. We've got B-Nick, how are you? Good morning. Tommy, good morning. How are you? Where is everybody else? Please, I need live chats. It works that you in particular, if you put in a live chat, that's all I need for the month. One person from one location or one account only counts as one for the entire month. So Mr. B. Nick, your live chat, I got it for the month. You can do it every week. Of course, you comment, that's fine. But if you comment 10 times, I still only get the one, just so you know. J.A. Beto, Renee, how are you doing? Oh, yeah, James from Miami, how are you? Yes, I remember you. It's the Rumble names I still am having trouble. Now, Renee, hers is easy. So I appreciate that. And I really need them because I need to get reinstated monetarily to pay for the channel. It's an issue this month. I actually had to cancel a bunch of subscriptions that I use for the channel. I have to juggle them. So they're canceled. I'll have to reinstate one and then cancel it again. It's complicated. All right. Headlines. No threats in Armenia for the presidential runoff. Security measures reinforced. Now, last week was the election, the pre-election. In a couple weeks, we get the final election. But tons of security throughout the department. And not only there was no problems at all anywhere, but they're also saying that there are no threats expected. There's no indication, how they get intelligence saying such and such may happen or whatever. Well, there's no indication there's going to be any problems. However, they threw in a few extra people. Now they put in, what was it, a couple hundred people the first time around, a few weeks back, to go in the country all over the place. And then just before the election, I think it was another 140, as I recall. I may have that wrong. And they've just thrown in another couple dozen. I'm glad that they go through all this effort. I mean, it's better to have it there and not need it. As a matter of fact, the strength of their presence could have something to do with nothing's happened. Mr. Zell, how are you? Good morning. Martha says hello and praying for your health. I think I'm improving. I have to believe that. For years, I don't know if I've ever told the story, and I'm not going to now, but I had this belief that I was invulnerable. Now, I know that's ridiculous. And if you were to ask me, I would have denied it. But I truly had that belief. I know it's weird. One day I'll tell you the story of places it came from. But in short, I escaped death a number of times in my earlier life. I mean, seriously, like barely escaped. You should have been dead. You should have been dead. Happened a number of times. And for whatever reason, I started having that feeling. Now, the first time I felt old was the year before the major heart attack last year, when I had my first two heart attacks, not knowing of what they were. And my energy level changed, everything changed. I actually felt old. I mean, like get up out of the chair and groan and all the cliche things. I'm feeling it reverse. And I think a lot of my situation, now this is guesstimation, but it seems that the medications that have been piled up weren't all necessarily the best particular ones. And with my local doctor, the private Dr. Luz, did a reevaluation not too long ago, and she switched up one of them. And I'm actually feeling improvement beyond what they said at the hospital was my best case. As a matter of fact, the hospital predicted that I'd probably be demised by now. So, and according to the civil registry, I am. But I'm feeling pretty good. Rigo, would a bridge help? No, I work through it somehow, some way. I appreciate it. I wasn't canvassing for that, but I appreciate it. I know that you would help me. I know I have some pretty good friends here. May not see them that often, but good, true-hearted people. And I know that if I reached out, several people would be more than willing to help me out. But I don't want to do that. I'll work through it. I'll get there. I have a certain level of faith that things will work out, and it's always stood me well. So I appreciate it though. I mean, I really do. If you want to help me, find that cable. I am I got this much hard drive space, and I'm sitting here operating on 6 hard drives. How did Armenia vote? Armenia is overwhelmingly conservative. I'll talk a little bit about the election on my after I get the headlines done. And my stories today, I think, are pretty good. I got 2 combined. I think you'll like them. William, how are you, Mr. William? He's the good William. And I don't know if you got that little picture. Mike sent it to me this morning. Kind of cracked me up because I remember it was quite a few years ago now. A picture of William. He's in this little, I don't know, I'd say gift shop, but it's not really a gift shop, but with trinkets around. He's holding this little statue of a, I don't know, gremlin that looked up for all the world like him. Anyway, it's inside. All right, so let's get back to the headlines. This has been a problem. It's becoming epidemic in Colombia, measles. It says Quindío activates protocols in response to suspected measles outbreak and calls for mass vaccination campaign. Vaccinations for measles are free. They're all over the place. I've had mine. You only need them once. I've actually had mine a couple times, but my first one was actually in school back when they used to give you shots, and I went in the military. They require you get a shot for everything possible throughout the Marine Corps. I assume the others are like that, but I don't know. But they don't know where on this planet you're going to be, so they give you're a pincushion. It's so bad they actually have to do it over the course of a few days. It's just horrendous. But so I'm vaccinated. They're saying a suspected measles outbreak, and I don't understand that because they've announced it throughout Colombia. It's a problem. And here, as I look through headlines and stuff, the hospitals are kind of getting overwhelmed with cases of measles. And you would think that even one would be, it's like, this is supposed to be gone from the earth. Anyway, if you're here, get yourself a shot. You don't want that crap. I had measles when I was a kid. This is kind of funny. Authorities in Armenia have ordered the removal of political propaganda. Somebody bought a digital billboard, and the removal is for allegedly inciting violence. And if you take a look at it, it shows Mr. Aprija, however you pronounce his name. It shows him kneeling on top of Cepeda. And Tiger is first. His nickname is the Tiger. I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny, but we don't have the same freedom of speech here. There's a certain level of it, and it's mostly if people don't care, nobody else cares. But in this one, you had a few people complaining about it, and so they said you got to take it down. You could possibly be inciting violence. So there was that. Made the headlines, tell you about it. Sometime in the future, coffee time, could you discuss 2-part authentication options and how SIM cards work? Well, Olga, I can, but since I've lived here, it's changed about 4 times. And I guess we can look at it again. Yeah, we can look at it again. But my hesitation is that every time I put something out there that's current at the time, next year when it's no longer current, I invariably start getting emails from people that watch year 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago and write to me complaining that my information's wrong. It's right at the time. Look at the date on it. At the time, it was correct, and they're really annoying. And so I've been trying to avoid anything that could change like that. But yeah, it's not killing me, I guess. So, all right, what's next? This was interesting. 77 people reported missing have reappeared to vote in Colombia. Now, reported missing, like I was reported dead, the civil registry, for whatever reason, they get information that people are missing. And so these people were in the civil registry as missing people. Police may have been involved. And what it turns out is there's nothing specific, but it appears that these 77 people reappeared in different areas of Colombia. So in other words, for whatever reason, they moved. And a lot of people here, they just live on a cash economy, don't use a bank, just do everything in cash. And so there's nothing really to record them. They move and that's it. Now you're supposed to in Colombia do, a movement certificate. So basically register that you've moved to a different place, which is unique to foreigners, but to Colombians, they generally understand this movement certificate. But if they just don't bother, who's going to know? And so 77 people turned up because they wanted to vote. I don't know. It's just, it's a Colombian thing. And this last one, we'll talk about the election a little bit, and then I'll tell my stories. This is, what do you call it? What is a Polymarket? This is Polymarket chart. And you got Cepeda as the red line. And you could see after the election, he's taken a nosedive. And Abrija, who is the number 2 winner, he's at 83% according to Polymarket. If you look at the path, that's probably true. I don't know if it's 80. Well, they're not saying the vote will be 83%. They're saying 83% believe he will win. And I think it's possible that he won't, but I think it's highly unlikely that he's not going to win. You're probably looking at the new president because Cepeda didn't have all the people that were likely to vote for him mostly voted for him. In the more moderate and conservative side, there were 5, I think, different candidates that they were voting for, but there was the lady who I told you about with a family that goes back like 500 years. She pulled a lot of votes. And the day after the election, she threw her votes over to this guy. And so he not only has his votes, which by percentage were maybe a few percent higher than by poll, would have beat Cepeda by, I think, 3% by poll. But she threw her votes in. And so then it becomes beyond a margin of error. So it looks like he's probably going to be the guy. And he made an announcement today saying that his first order of business will be security, and he plans on modeling his security efforts targeted to places like Cauca and along the Venezuelan border where these groups thrive. Those will be his targets, and he plans on modeling it after Bukele. So if you're a fan of what's happened in El Salvador, you'll be cheering. And if you think for some reason El Salvador was horrible, there's a lot of weird things being said about it, but it's all political. It's not fact. The facts are, I have a friend, we don't talk much, but there was a time when him and his family were very close to me and mine. And he left El Salvador because he was being forced into a gang. And he was for a short time there, and finally he just escaped because he was going to be dead. But he still has a lot of people there, and he has close ties there, and so he knows very much what El Salvador is all about. And so I talked to him about this, and he said, no, there's no confusion in El Salvador about what was the right thing. He says that's why you see 90% of the people supporting him, because for the first time in their lives they've been able to live free, without worry, without fear, without having to escape. And so I'll believe him because he knows. And so if that were to repeat here, I think it would be a good thing. I know people want to get political and set aside facts and reason on either side. I don't care. I believe that's a uniparty, and it's a uniparty in Colombia too, in a lot of ways. But occasionally somebody might come along to kind of tip the apple cart, which is what Bukele did. And it's what, what's his name did in Argentina. And in both cases, those are positive outcomes that are taking place there. Well, we could use that here too. So, I'm all for it. Tommy, if they go to a retail store, don't they have to give their cedula number for tax purposes? That should show some activity. Well, yeah, but they don't write it down. If you go into a tienda, well, first of all, tiendas don't care. I've never been asked for a cedula, and a lot of people they don't go into Éxito. That's considered middle class and above. So people that are living on the lower end, not necessarily in poverty, but on the lower end, or more traditionally, they don't go into those places. But even if you do, it's not like Éxito is reporting every single person that shows a cedula. The only time I think I've ever been required to show a cedula is if I was paying with a credit or debit card. Now, that may not be correct. I don't know. I don't really even think about it. It's been so long. Now, you'll occasionally be in a place where they want to see your cedula, and they just look at it, and that's the end of it. So anyway, did the election thing. Is that it? I think that's it for the news. Rigo, you have to give your cedula. That's only if you're trying to get points. Oh, you don't have to give your cedula. It's only if you're trying to get points. Yeah, the Colombian points are a big thing. I found out that I had accumulated almost 100,000 points without knowing it. I could probably do something with it. One of these days I'll look. I mean, I wonder if I could use the points to pay my rent. All right, so today's stories, I had to dig for this, but they're both true stories. It's a two-parter, because I think they belong together. So it's kind of blue chip stamps, yeah, or S&H green stamps. All right, I want to talk to you today about a plant, and no, surprisingly, not coffee. It's bamboo. Specifically, it's a type of bamboo called guaja. Now, if you live in this part of Colombia, or you're thinking about buying land here or building anything here, you need to know about it before you pick up anything sharp. Because one man near Salento didn't know. And what followed was the most expensive, most humiliating, most bureaucratically absurd afternoon of his expat life. Over 4 stalks of bamboo leaning into his property line. So what is guaja? First, let me tell you what we're dealing with. Guaja angustifolia. I know I butchered it. That's its full name, at least in English. You'd call it giant bamboo, or some will say Colombian bamboo. Or if you're a man standing in front of the CRQ official explaining yourself, the most expensive plant on earth. It grows throughout coffee access, Quindío, Risaralda, Caldas. You see it everywhere. The thick green stalks along roadsides, along rivers, on hillsides. Looks like bamboo, only 10 times fatter. Some stalks grow to 30 meters or about 100 feet tall. A mature stand of guaja is an engineering marvel. It's flexible enough to survive earthquakes. You may remember a video I did on the earthquake here in Armenia, and I talked about the 200 experimental homes up to 3 stories tall made out of this, and not a single bit of damage to any of them. So it's strong enough to build with, and it's deeply woven into the cultural environmental identity of this region. UNESCO designated the coffee cultural landscape of Colombia, which includes Quindío, as a World Heritage Site in 2011. Now, guaja is part of that designation. The Regional Environmental Authority here, the CRQ, which is something like Corporación Autónoma Regional del Quindío or something like that, takes its protection seriously. I mean, really seriously. You need a permit to cut guaja on your own property, your land, your stalks leaning over the fence, permit required from the CRQ in advance. Most people who move here don't know that, and most people who find out the hard way. So here's what happened to the man here. It was actually in Salento. He's building his retirement home. It's the dream. Finca life in the coffee triangle. He planned it for years, and he finally has his land. He's got his contractor, and he has 4 stalks of guaja leaning at an angle over his future construction site. They're in the way. They're leaning. He doesn't want them falling on a worker. He does what any reasonable homeowner would do. He cuts them down. Takes him about 20 minutes. He didn't know that his neighbor, a man he had kind of a quiet, low-grade boundary disagreement with, his neighbor was watching and filming. That video got sent to the CRQ. Within days, he was facing a formal complaint, a potential fine, and something he did not anticipate at all. A village-wide reputation as a man who had come to Colombia to destroy the local ecosystem. If you know rumors here in Colombia, that's the rumor that spread. An American came and started cutting down the protected forest. It was 4 stalks of bamboo. What followed with months of navigating a formal regional defense process with meetings and documentation and statements. His Spanish, which he'd been before proud of, suddenly became inadequate. He had to hire help. He had to show up. He had to explain in formal Colombian bureaucratic procedures why he had done what any person on earth would have assumed was completely normal property maintenance. Now, I'm telling you this story because to me it was funny. 4 stalks of bamboo. I'm also telling you because it's not funny at all if it happens to you. If you own land in Quindío or Risaralda or Caldas and you have guaja on it, here's what you need to understand. You can't cut it. You can't trim it. You can't harvest it. You can't remove it without a permit from the CRQ. Not even a little bit. You can't even trim a little chunk off of it. Not even if it's falling on your house. The process to get that permit involves a site inspection, documentation of the guaja stand, justification for the removal, and approval before you touch anything. It takes time, it costs money, like anything bureaucratic in Colombia. Unless you're Colombian, we'll talk about that a little bit. It requires patience, which if you've dealt with Colombian bureaucracy like Rigo, you know that's its own skill set. The other thing you need to understand is the neighbor dynamic. Now, rural Colombia operates on relationships, on the history, on who said what to whom back in 2015. If you have a neighbor who does not like you, and sometimes neighbors don't like you for reasons you have nothing to do with, your property decisions are visible. And if you make a visible mistake, it will be reported. Now, it's not malice specific to foreigners. It's just how rural Colombian communities work. The difference is that a Colombian who makes the same mistake often has his family connections, a shared history, and a community standing with him that cushions the fall. You probably don't. The solution is also very Colombian. Now, in our man's case, our Mr. Salento expat, what eventually smoothed things over involved a formal apology, some paperwork, and supposedly, rumor, a significant amount of aguardiente shared at the right moment with the right people. Now, aguardiente, in case you don't know, it means firewater. It's Colombians' national liquor. It fixes more administrative problems than lawyers do. Aguardiente, when I lived here 20 plus years ago, it was pennies for a quart. I mean, it was so cheap. Today, it costs as much as a fine whiskey. I don't know what happened, but that's how it became Colombia's liquor, because for years, it was cheaper than milk. But this lesson is simple. Before you touch anything on your land that looks like it might be native, or if you rent, and especially before you touch guaja, call the CRQ, get that permit. It costs less than the alternative in every possible way. Now it's part two. Same man, different problem. Now, as you recall, this all began when he was going to be building his dream house. So this time he didn't do anything wrong. He did something generous. He meant well. He tried to treat the people who were building his house to a nice lunch, but they went hungry. This is a story of the almuerzo and why understanding it might be the most cultural, important thing I say to you all year. First, for those of you that don't know, why does this matter? What is it? In food terms, almuerzo is your standard lunch or the working lunch. In the U.S., I think they call them blue plate specials. This is a lunch that's been served at small Colombian restaurants since before anyone alive can remember. I mean, if you look it up, try to find the origin. Nothing in English quite captures it, because nothing in American food culture carries the same weight that this meal carries here. Probably the closest you get to it is the Amish. They have a certain working man's requirement list. That's why their food is so calorie heavy. And almuerzo has a structure, and it's not negotiable. Soup first, always. It might be sancocho. That's like chicken soup with corn, yuca, plantain. It might be ajiaco. It's like, I guess, like a thick potato soup. It might be something else, depending on where you are, what day it is, and what leftovers there might be. But there's always a soup. If there's no soup, you didn't start lunch. Then comes the seco, the dry plate. Rice and beans, a protein of chicken, beef, pork, fish, not in any particular way. If you order up an almuerzo, all they want to know is chicken, beef, or pork usually. And it's not like, is it fried? Is it boiled? Yeah, who knows? You're going to get what you get. And then with it, it'll be a small salad, and pretty much always will be a slice of aguacate or avocado. And then a glass of jugo or fresh fruit juice. Now, in the real cheap ones, real poor ones, you might get the agua panela. It's kind of like a sugar water. But in general, it's going to be a fresh fruit juice. And occasionally, you might get a little tiny thing of dessert. The whole thing costs between 8,000 and 15,000 pesos usually at a local place. That's roughly, $2 to $4 maybe? And it will fuel a working man through a full afternoon of physical labor in the Colombian heat. That's what it's designed to. Colombian heat, but you said, temperatures are in the 70s mostly. Well, they are. But if you're out in that sun working, that's a whole different ball game. In the shade, 70 degrees. In the sun, it becomes about 3,000 degrees as the skin peels off your back. So, here's our man with the construction crew. They've been working hard, putting up his finca, right? His dream. And he's grateful. He is so happy. He's got past the legal hurdles. He's got a good crew. They're working their tail off. And he wants to do something nice. Something beyond what he owes them. Something that says, hey, I appreciate the work. In America, treating your crew to a nice lunch means upgrading. Maybe you order in pizzas. It means you're not doing the cheap thing. You're trying to do something nice. It's something different, something special. So he gets on the phone. He finds a delivery app. He orders everyone artisanal burgers, American style. I mean, he's proud of this. He knows these are going to be awesome. These are expensive. The truth is, it probably costs four to five times more than what the almuerzo would have cost. It's like brioche bun with the aioli and the Angus beef. Definitely well-intentioned. So he brings them, it gets delivered, he hands them out to the crew, and the crew eats them down. They're polite, and they say thank you, and they go back to work. 2 hours later, productivity has dropped. They're dragging. I'm thinking of words that I really shouldn't say, but their butts are dragging. They're tired. And somebody mentioned in the group to a friend in that group who's bilingual that they're hungry after lunch. Now, their friend eventually explains the situation to our expat dude. The crew, to a person, did not feel that they had eaten. Not because the food was bad, not because there wasn't enough of it, but because there was no soup. There was no rice. There's no beans, no jugo, there's no structure to it. What they received was a snack in a bun. A very expensive snack, but it was a snack. They had worked all morning in the heat. They needed that fuel. They got a culinary experience. He felt terrible. Now, they didn't blame him. They understood he meant well. But that gap between intention and reality is exactly why I'm telling you this story. In the coffee access, food's not a lifestyle choice. It's not a trend. It's part of the infrastructure. The workers who build the fincas, who tend the coffee, haul the guaja, they perform physical labor at altitude, in humidity, in heat, that most of us sit inside and avoid. The almuerzo is engineered for that. Every component has a function. The soup hydrates and it warms the stomach. The rice and beans provide sustained energy. The protein repairs the muscle and the juice replaces what the heat took from you. Remove any of those pieces and you haven't given someone a different lunch, you've given them a less lunch, regardless of what you paid for it. And there's something deeper here too. In Colombian culture, and especially in this coffee region, a proper meal is an act of respect. When you feed someone an almuerzo, you're saying, I know what you need. I see the work. This is for that. When you feed someone something else, even something expensive, even something you meant as a generous gesture, what lands with them, whether you intend it or not, is, I don't quite know you yet. It's just how it comes across culturally. And it's worth knowing this. Cleaning ladies, that comes up with a lot of people. And usually lunch is included. And this type of thing happens a lot, which is what first came to mind and why I decided I should tell this story too. So here's where the bamboo and the beans meet. Both of these stories are about the same thing. A man who moved to one of the most beautiful places on earth, who was trying to do the right thing, who ran into the edge of what he didn't know yet. The bamboo was a legal edge. The lunch was a cultural one. Neither mistake came from carelessness. Both came from importing assumptions that worked well somewhere else. That's the central challenge of building a life here. Not the language, not the bureaucracy, although the bureaucracy is real. The challenge is that Colombia, and this region in particular, there's a logic to it. Things mean things. Plants mean things. Meals mean things. And the learning curve isn't steep so much as it is endless. The man near Salento learned both lessons. He now calls the CRQ before touching anything on his property. And when his crew works, lunch is an almuerzo from the local place down the road, soup included. He said it was the best 14,000 pesos he ever spent. Now, if you're building a life here or thinking about it, take both of these stories seriously. Know what grows on your land and what rules are around it. Know how the people you work with eat and why. They're not small things. They're the things that determine whether you're a foreigner who lives in Colombia or someone who actually belongs to the place. And there's a difference. Colombia will show it to you one way or the other. And I think the last thing I'll say is the old cliche, you don't know what you don't know. And that's the joy of living here and the danger of it. So keep it in mind. I've seen too much where people will come here and they're kind of arrogant about, I know a better way. I don't care if your way is 10 times better. You're living here now, and that's what matters. And you can argue all you want, but do you want to spend your life arguing with hassle, or do you want to spend your life comfort, ease, and peaceful? And that'll be the difference. All right, let's take a look at the, is it like the old green stamps? Yep. Man, we're telling our age. I'm always telling my age. I don't care. I mean, I am what I am. I use my Exito points for coffee and bread at the cafeteria. Cool. Never thought of that. I got a ton. I'm guessing. I don't know what they add up to, but having over 100,000, I'm guessing that's probably a lot. Now, it may turn out to be nothing, but I'm just, because I never really looked into it. I just get email notices occasionally. Dan the man, how you doing? I hope everything's well. I got a medical question. He asked me where he should go. First thing that came to my mind, well, we've got that new hospital, the 2 buildings, the clinic, the hospital. I mean, why not? Because they've got all the newest of everything. Supposedly they have all the equipment that like the best hospital in Colombia has. That's one of its features. So it's what the hell, go there. Of course, you could always go to the one I went to, which very competent, very, very conscientious. When I went there with a heart attack, I mean, they were on it like that and did everything they needed to do. And I'm looking at, at AI to see how they're doing. Everything was, right. But can't complain. Got nothing bad to say about it. My weird diagnosis and stuff didn't come from there. It came from the checkup in a wholly different place. But I would certainly, I would go back if I had to. But you got this new hospital that's putting its best foot forward and it has all this as high tech as it comes. I would probably want to go there. I don't know. I don't know. It's a licorice tasting liquor. I personally don't like it. Yeah, I hate it. But it tastes like the Greeks have ouzo. And to me, it tastes just like ouzo, only a bit harsher. Ouzo is kind of a smooth thing. And aguardiente is that kind of to your throat, like a harsh, cheap whiskey would be or something like that. I almost never drink, and that's been for decades, but I do love having a drink. I love wine. Last time I had wine was probably 3-4 months ago. It's very rare, but I love wine. I love rum. My favorite drink used to be a mojito. What do you call it? What's that? Old fashioned, not rum, but old fashioned. I love dirty martinis. I actually have stuff. I could make a dirty martini here. I have some stuff, but it's been sitting there for years. I mean, I got a bottle of rum that's 14 years aged, and it's got like this much out of it, and I didn't even have it. I got a bottle of gin. I was in Price Mart one time, and they had a sale. It was Beefeaters, and they had a sale on it. It was something like half price. So I just threw it in the cart, and I made one martini out of it, and that was probably maybe 4 years ago. Yeah, I'm not much of a drinker. I used to like to have a couple beers a week, cold beers on a hot day. I haven't even had beer. I haven't bought beer in probably 3 months. Of course, it has a lot to do with what's going on with me. I'm sure that my medication's probably not great to be drinking with. I mean, I don't know. I just made that assumption, so I've been kind of avoiding that. Dan, my dad got a complete exam by an ER physician who reassured us that there's no indication of any neurological cardiovascular problem. But did he tell? Do you know what it was? Did he say what the instance was? What caused that? And was it ER physician like at the public hospital? I know you got the new one down south. I think it's open now. We've got 2 or 3 public hospitals. If there's 2, yeah, I think there's 2 down south, the new one and the old one. And then you got the old one here. Those new buildings, I think that's also a public hospital. So I think you now have old and new in the south and old and new in the north. Don't hold me to that. Don't put money on it, but I think that's the case. All right. Thank you for the chats. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be begging for chats, and it needs to be from people that are not the regular people. I need all the people that hide in the bushes, you lurk in the shadows. And I get that. But I'm asking you, please, because if I don't get them, then I don't get monetized, then I can't pay for what I have to pay for to do these videos, which mean I go away. Now, if you don't care, that's fine. But you're here watching every week, so you probably care a little bit. And all I'm asking is for a chat. I don't even have my hand out. I'm just asking for a live chat. Now, some people watch this later and they'll put a chat, not a chat, but a comment. Comments don't count. I mean, I appreciate the comments. I read the comments. I respond to them. It's good for information. That's all well and good. But Rumble requires live chats. And it's not that many. It was sad that I missed it by 4 last week. It means that I only got 16 unique live chats over the course of the entire month, where I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that were watching. So that was a bitter pill. I was pretty sad about that. So I'm starting early now. Please. And once I close the stream, it's done until next time. Okay. Last call for any chats, any comments, anything on the election. I'm surprised that people didn't say Bukele. We don't want a Bukele in Colombia or whatever, or hooray, we're so glad. You know, it's people that live in places like Cauca will be glad. They will be very grateful. And I think that's really what counts. You know, we sit back in our nice, comfortable, protected areas and complain about, you know, the force that they may use against criminals. But the people are sitting there being tortured and killed and extorted, and they're going to be very happy about it. As a matter of fact, I talked to a couple already that I know that live in those areas, and they can't wait. They can't wait for that day to come. So anyway, we're on my last call. So last call for comments. If not, if you don't want to keep it going, we will end it here in a moment. See, from the time there's a slight time differential. And so I don't want to call for last call and then say, oh, nobody was there. And this hits almost every week. Then 2 or 3 comments pop up after I end stream. So that's why I'm dragging my feet. All right. I think I dragged my feet long enough. I will see you next week. I'll let you know if I'm no longer dead. I hope so. I hope that's the case. Really like to get this. You know, this will be the first time in the 9 years I've lived here that I've been late for rent. Never before. Yeah, what can I do? And the sad thing is, I can't help it. Got all the reason in the world, but they're not going to give a crap because sadly, I went through the agency and agencies don't care. And it's yet one more reason you should never use a real estate agent. Never. Always deal with the owners directly. All right. That's it. I will see you next week. Ciao.